Grand Duchy of Luxembourg isn't well known for small arms design, but it does have an indigenous submachine gun known as the SOLA Super, as well as a lightweight version. Very interesting gun combining some of the best features of guns from World War II, but eventually this gun got its owner in a lot of trouble.
In the aftermath of the Second World War, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg was in a dire condition. It had endured 4 years of German occupation from 1940 until liberation in September 1944. And during that time, over 15,000 Luxembourgers had been impressed into the German army. And in the aftermath of the war, the country was left in a state of economic depression. And in addition to that, it had no police force and it had no military. And that's because during the 4 years of occupation, the German government had subsumed all of that. The result was then that in the aftermath of the war, there was an immediate need to arm a police constabulary force and then begin a process of rebuilding the Luxembourgish military. This led very quickly to the rapid adoption of World War II firearms and their use in the immediate post-war years. But Luxembourg wanted to, first of all, rebuild itself, and then, secondly, create something in the way of an export economy. And the arms trade was a reliable source of import-export economy in the years immediately after the Second World War. And so, at a factory in Edelbruch in central Luxembourg in 1953, designers went to work to come up with a new submachine gun. And the company that was formed was called SOLA, S-O-L-A, standing for Société Luxembourgeoise.
They first started with trying to improve on the Sten gun. This proved not to work very well, and no one literally was buying the weapons. Then they decided to copy the Belgian Vigneron, and the result was SOLA. It's a 9mm fully automatic submachine gun, but it will also, with selector switch, fire semi-automatically. It's made of stamped parts and plastic, similar to an MP40.
It's a firearm making use of sheet metal stampings for economy of scale, of course, but nevertheless, it's an attractive firearm with a built-in muzzle compensator on the barrel, and it's lightweight, weighing barely over 6 pounds, 6.3 pounds total. They introduced the SOLA Super 9mm submachine gun. This goes into production in 1954 in Edelbruch and continues in production, but the engineers don't just stop there. They want to make it even lighter, even more compact, potentially for use by paratroopers. And so they design ultimately then the SOLA Léger, or the light SOLA. Has a shorter barrel. It removes a little bit of the finery of the SOLA Super, and it's even lighter. But it preserves the same open bolt direct blowback operating mechanism with a simplified fire selector. It's still using the same wire stock, still using the MP40 submachine gun 32 round detachable box magazine. And it is, because of its compactness, an appropriate weapon for airborne use.
If you look at the two models of the SOLA, the original model, the SOLA Super, which was some Luxembourg designer's idea of a submachine gun. And then you look at the second model, which simplified the gun considerably. You begin to understand that the designers, it slowly dawned on them what the submachine gun really was, and it was not what they had originally thought. The world did not need a better new submachine gun. It needed a cheaper one. But even as cheap as it got, It appeared at a time when the British were disposing of hundreds of thousands of Sten guns. And the world was awash in submachine guns.
The only buyer that is ever found are African countries. When the SOLAs get loose in Africa, they are suddenly used by forces that are participating in the decolonization of Africa. And because of this, sales slow down to a crawl, and the SOLA Super, as well as the SOLA Léger, are resigned to really just being a footnote in the history of 20th century small arms. Nevertheless, the SOLA submachine gun lives on, arming the Luxembourgish military through the 50s and into the 1960s. It is the only firearm designed and manufactured in the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. And although its history may have been brief and easily overlooked, it is a firearm that today stands out as an interesting moment in the evolution of the 9mm submachine gun. The American Rifleman was allowed to test fire a SOLA Super and a SOLA Léger with the cooperation of the Grand Ducal Police of Luxembourg. And the firearms that even now, decades after they were really rendered obsolete by modern technology, they are still fascinating to shoot.